Hi everybody, welcome to another edition of the Sunday Drive, sponsored by Manly Motors in downtown Lindsay. Thank you so much to Manly Motors for allowing us to do these important segments. And today we are going to be talking to Barb Truax. Hi Barb, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome.
Barb is a former Citizen of the Year. She is a longtime volunteer at many things in Lindsay and the city of Kawartha Lakes. She's also an adventurer. So wait until you hear some of the stories she has to tell. This is going to be a fantastic Sunday drive. So sit back, relax, and enjoy your Sunday drive. Okay, so here we are. We have Barb Truax in our vehicle today for our Sunday drive. And many of you probably don't realize this, but a lot of the things that you do or services that you see here in the city of Kawartha Lakes, Barb has had a hand in. She is an amazing person. She has volunteered at so many local organizations, and she's also been Citizen of the Year. She's got a couple of awards named after her. So Barb, let's begin by talking about your many volunteer opportunities that you do. So you were on the library board for how many years?
15 years. Just shortly after the amalgamation of the city. And then I just stepped down actually from that position in December. And they were very nice to combine an interest I have in the arts by naming an award, a purchase award that the library does, and presented it to the art gallery. And I was really absolutely thrilled with that.
And what was it about the library board that made you want to take part?
I love books, and I read all the time. And it's an opportunity to work in your community because they had 12 branches of the library. So it's really interesting because you would go around, you'd see all these libraries, you'd meet all these people. And then of course you're involved with books, the administration of the library as well. And you see another whole aspect of the community when you're working on a board and trying to do something to contribute to the city.
And Kawartha Lakes Food Source?
Well, I was a founding member of that because the Rotary Club did a survey of all the nonprofits to determine, what if there was a need for a food distribution center, because all the churches had little food banks within their churches, but they didn't really have a whole lot of food to give out, only what the congregations brought in, and so they did a survey and established a steering committee and at the very first meeting there were 27 organizations in the city that came to that because of the need for people needing food.
Huge need.
So the steering committee developed the committee, and I was on that, and then for 13 years I was the fundraiser. Because there's no government funding for any of that. It's all whatever monies that you can raise.
Wow. And how did you go about doing that?
Well, I started off by, we needed some staffing, and we had no money to pay. So there was an opportunity then through the Service Canada. It wasn't called Service Canada then, but Human Resources Development Committee, but to get a grant for an employee for 1 year. And so that was the first thing we got. Along with that, there was some extra money where you could buy a computer and some office equipment to get started. And then we just kind of did barbecues, and I don't know what all we did to do. Started writing grants for money and people were really generous. And then we established a golf tournament, and the golf tournament has now been running for since 2002. My husband was the one who first started the golf tournament for that, and they contribute about $10,000 or $11,000 a year
That's a lot of money
to the food source. So it's really very interesting how people become so generous. So now they have like patrons that are contributing to it, but it's a continual,
growing
struggle to to keep everything going.
Mm-hmm.
But now I think they've got 2.5 employees down there now, where we've only had one for the longest time, and then a half of one after that.
How do you have half an employee, Barb?
Well, you only work half time.
No, I'm just kidding. And there's now the Barb Truax Volunteer Award given out by the Food Source, right?
That's right. They have an annual. They select a volunteer who has contributed throughout the year, and it's presented at their volunteer appreciation dinner, and they were kind enough to name that award after me. How
do you feel about that? Because you said I don't want people to think I'm bragging. You're very modest and humble, but how do you feel about that?
Well, absolutely, you've got to be absolutely thrilled. The people think that you're worthy. Because you do this work and everything, but you don't really need to be paid for it or anything.
Why do you do it?
Because, I love doing, I like people, and I like going to meetings. I guess I like going to meetings.
And that's how we met, because a lot of places I go, I see you. And I'm like, wait, this woman is everywhere.
No, well, I just think it's great if people don't help out in the community, because there's so many things, that need to be done, and there's not enough money to be able to do them. So if you can help in some way, it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And Citizen of the Year, what year were you given that honor?
2012.
2012,
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How many years or hours a week would you say you volunteer?
A lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's I do a little bit every day, but now you see this week is Fair Week, and so I have to go down and work in the St. Paul's Anglican Church booth, delivering poutine and
really?
French fries.
Wow. And you also have an award from the church, right?
Yes.
Or an honor. I don't know if we call it an award or an honor from the church.
Well, I was absolutely, another time that just, it just makes you speechless. But I was nominated from our church to receive this award that the Anglican Diocese in Toronto presents. And it's called the Order of the Diocese of Toronto. And so they nominated me, and it was accepted, and I went to St. James Cathedral on January the 1st, 2012, and they present you with a certificate and a medal to wear around your neck and buttons and anything to do with the church. You're supposed to wear some indication that you do have that honor.
Mm-hmm.
But I wear the pin, but I don't really get into wearing the big medal.
And what types of things have you been involved in with the church?
Just about everything. Right now I'm the chair of the communications committee. I've been a warden at the church on 2 different occasions, and I run a mystery dinner every year. I do spring thaw, which is welcoming everybody back from who've been away all winter. Those are fundraisers for the church, but the big fundraiser for St. Paul's is that food booth that's at the fair.
So let's talk now about some of your adventures. Holy smokes. So you were showing me some pictures. You walked on the ocean floor. Where was that, and what was that like?
Well, it was in Australia. I went to Australia 2 years ago, and we went up to Great Barrier Reef, and so people swim there and do all that kind of thing, but we got on a boat and we went 2-3 miles out into the water to the reef, the other part of the reef, and on that ship they offered this this walk on the ocean floor. So they put you in all the
waterproof suit or something. Yeah,
all the suit and things to weigh you down so you don't float. And then they put this great big helmet on you, like a
space helmet or something.
And then, you know, they pump oxygen into the top of them. And then you go down this ladder and you walk along. They've got some, it's like a platform. Like, and you walk around there and the fish all swim around. You look at the fish. And it's really kind of funny because if you want to put your hand somewhere and you look down at your hand, well, your hand might be there, but you think it's over there because of the refraction of this bubble that you're in. And it's really, but it was just
amazing experience. And so that was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So you're 84 now, so you would have been 82 when you did that.
Yeah.
Wow. And then you also went to, it's not skydiving, but what is it in Toronto?
Well, it's called iFly.
iFly.
And the reason for going there was that both of my kids were born in March, and my son-in-law was born the 1st of April. And so every year, those 3 birthdays all come along together. And it's always difficult to find something to take them to. We've gone to Murray's Productions in Toronto and done that kind of thing. But when I found out about this iFly thing, I booked them in there, and we went to Toronto, and all the kids flew around. You go into this silo that's a wind tunnel, and you have somebody in there with you, and then they get you flying around, and you do a minute at a time, and then you do that 3 times, and then you do 2 minutes after that. That seems like a long time when you're there.
When you're flying around.
Yeah, and then they have you can fly up into the silo too, and then back down. So that was really fun. But it was just fun watching the kids have such a good time. So I decided I better jump in there. Well, they have a rule that if I won't do it, then we can't do it. My husband was always very funny because he'd say, I don't need to go to any of those places because there's a picture and that's what it looks like. But as soon as anybody was going anywhere, he was the first one to sign up.
And your husband was Art, so this is a good time to talk about Art Truax. He is a former mayor of, was it Lindsay, I guess, at the time?
He was the last mayor of Lindsay.
Okay. And
the first mayor of the city of Kawartha Lakes.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that part.
And there's a park called, it's the Jim Flynn Park. It's in the north part of Lindsay. And there were 50 mayors at in the year 2000 when the amalgamation was taken. So there is a tree for every one of the mayors.
So when did they name this street after Art?
Oh, it's been recent. It's not, maybe 10 years ago.
And how did you find out about it? How did all that transpire? What did they say?
Well, I know someone came and told me they were living on this street, so that's what. By profession, he was a school teacher, and he did all of his teaching at LCVI, and became the principal there. And then he went with the Trillium Lakelands District School Board, and retired from that position. And then he, I guess, didn't have anything to do, so he ran for mayor.
Oh, wow. How long was he mayor?
Well, he was mayor for 6 years, 7 years altogether. But he started out as a councillor. He'd been a councillor in the 60s when it was just the Lindsay council. But when he was retiring, he ran again and became a councillor. And then he just worked his way to being the mayor.
What would you say his legacy is?
His legacy? Oh, he has a wonderful legacy because he was a man who was very fair, very personable. He said things as he thought them. He didn't pull any punches about that, but he was always very fair with everybody. He was a wonderful athlete, and he played hockey here, and his brother played hockey. And he belonged, he got the vocational award from the Rotary Club, and he was a very accomplished man.
And what do you want your legacy to be?
Just Well, as long as people think that I contributed to the world, that's about it, because to me that's the important thing, that you do something for other people.
And if people are watching this and they're thinking, well, how can I become involved? Because it is something you think, oh, there's so many different things, and, what do I do? How do I help out? What advice would you give them?
Well, I think everybody should do something to contribute to their community. And I know that it's really difficult for some people because the situation in this day and age is such that it requires both husband and wife to be working in order to to get a house, to raise the families and that kind of thing. And everything's changed, that they just don't have the time or probably the energy to do anything. But I think everyone should do something to contribute, because I think it shows you the way other people live in the world. And in the food source, for example, was really heartwarming to think that you were providing food for some of these people.
Okay, Barb, so what's next for you? What other adventures do you have planned?
Well, as far as travel is concerned, I am going in January. I'm going to go to South Africa. We're going on a couple of safaris, and then we're taking a cruise around the Cape of Good Hope. So that's about 3 weeks long in January.
Wow, exciting.
But that's on the bucket list, you see. That's on the
So you got to get that one in for sure. Yeah, that sounds amazing. We'll have fun. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us and for telling us all about your wonderful adventures, and thanks for all that you do for the community.
Oh,
we all really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.